Tonight on News 5 Live, Prime Minister Dean Barrow suspends John Saldivar indefinitely from cabinet, and Saldivar resigns as leader-elect of the UDP. The Council of Churches says it is concerned about the fallout, while the Chamber of Commerce calls for an investigation. There is a mid-afternoon shooting in the city, and a $1.7 million pest control lab is inaugurated. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
Signing up for Smart's broadband got even better. You can
Welcome to News 5 Live for Wednesday, February 12th. I am Marlene Cuellar. On Monday and Tuesday, explosive details, including text messages between Jacob Kingston and John Saldivar, were revealed in a Utah court. Saldivar agreed to go to Miami to receive $50,000 in cash from associates of Kingston. The information, which had been foretold in Kingston's depositions and therefore anticipated before Sunday's convention, sent the UDP in a tailspin, and the Prime Minister had to act to stop the hemorrhaging. Today, after a special cabinet meeting, followed by another with UDP standard bearers, Prime Minister Dean Barrow issued a 3-minute recorded statement on the state of affairs involving Saldivar. The media camped out in Belmopan, but there were no interviews with either the Prime Minister or Saldivar, whose leadership of the UDP lasted for a historic 3 days. There are many unanswered questions, but did the Prime Minister go far enough? News 5's Isani Cayetano has the following report.
The Barrow administration is reeling from the embarrassment of having to take decisive action against John Saldivar, less than 3 days after being elected as the new leader of the United Democratic Party. The short-lived convention victory is recorded as the most fleeting triumph in Belize's political history, and that mark of dishonor and shame that the government has suffered in the wake of the Lev Derman scandal may very well be a lasting black eye.
The testimony given in the trial this Monday and Tuesday by one Jacob Kingston has proved, to say the least, explosive. Kingston incriminated Minister John Saldivar in particular and produced text messages in support of his evidence relating to the allegations he made against Minister Saldivar.
The events of the past 48 hours fly in the face of Saldivar's bold statement following Sunday's leadership convention that nothing coming out of Jacob Kingston's testimony would implicate him in any wrongdoing.
Well, first of all, the cloud that has been hanging over my head has been put there by those who have interpreted and misinterpreted things. I have not been at this point accused of anything. I've always said that I'm not guilty of any wrongdoing. I maintain that, and until anything else is proven otherwise, that is my position. And I'm glad that the people of Belize saw it that way, whilst the media may not have.
But having gone before the nation to inform of pending measures to be taken against anyone found to have accepted money from Lev Derman, Prime Minister Barrow was compelled to act today. That compulsion resulted in the calling in of all members of cabinet, as well as UDP standard bearers from all 31 constituencies, to an emergency meeting in Belmopan this morning. Out of that meeting comes the following.
As Prime Minister, I have earlier gone on record about this matter. This was after ministers had sworn to cabinet that none of them had taken any money from Derman and Associates. I said in cabinet at the time, and later at a press conference, that any minister subsequently proven indeed to have taken money and therefore to have lied to cabinet would have to leave the cabinet. That time for leaving, in view of what happened Monday and Tuesday in Salt Lake City, Utah, that time has unfortunately come. I therefore today asked Minister Saldivar to submit to me his resignation as leader-elect of the United Democratic Party. He has agreed to do so.
News 5 got a reaction from UDP Chairman Michael Perfeet late this afternoon. According to the presiding officer, himself a member of cabinet, the hard decision taken by the Prime Minister was a test of one's mettle.
This must have been embarrassing, to go through this entire process of an expensive and elaborate, well-planned convention, have a man administer and take the oath of office, and then this is the outcome. How do you guys now deal with either the damage control or the optics of it, as we would say?
Well, you're either built for politics or you're not built for politics. Everybody knows that politics is the roughest game ever, rougher than football. So when you're in politics, you have to anticipate the possibility of these things. You go through a convention, you select a leader, and a couple of days later that leader resigns. That's a part of it. You have to rebound. You have to gather yourself, and then you have to choose a new leader. that's the game, so to speak. So it's not an issue for us. It's just tough to see a person who we love and a person who loves the party so much have to resign as leader, given the fact that this is a person who's been fighting for leadership of the party his entire life.
That fight, which has seen Saldivar lose on 2 previous occasions, has resulted in a hemorrhaging of the ruling party, in light of public outrage against Saldivar and the Barrow administration.
In addition to the resignation, I have decided to put the minister on indefinite suspension from the cabinet. This will do 2 things. It will give the minister a chance to prove the innocence which he strongly maintains. It will also give time for the government to obtain official transcripts from the trial and direct the police to launch and complete a thorough investigation into all the allegations made in the course of that Durban trial. The UDP will, in due time, choose a new leader-elect for the party.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isana Cayetano.
So Saldivar is without the Ministry of National Security tonight, and a replacement is yet to be named. Saldivar has maintained all along that he's not guilty of any wrongdoing. While the Prime Minister says that he asked Saldivar to resign, Saldivar says he offered to resign. He also said, quote, "I thank all those who supported me during the recently concluded leadership convention. It is unfortunate, but life is real. Once my name is properly cleared, I will resume the work that I love so dearly. I will continue to work with colleagues to ensure victory for our UDP later this year. I am also happy to continue serving as Minister of National Security," unquote. But according to the Prime Minister, Saldivar has been suspended indefinitely from cabinet. This afternoon, new UDP Chairman Michael Parafit responded to the events of the day by saying that Prime Minister Barrow was duty-bound to request Saldivar's resignation, but that the beleaguered Belmopan area representative only tendered his walking papers because of the overwhelming impact of the scandal on the UDP. He says an urgent meeting, including the Prime Minister and the newly elected executives, will take place in the days ahead to chart a way forward.
The party leader asked him to resign, and he chose to resign in the best interests of the party, in John's view. It had to have been tough for him. We had a full and frank discussion this morning in the cabinet room. It was tough for everybody, but John decided that it was in the best interest of the party, while maintaining his innocence completely in the matter, to step down at this time. Where we are right now, we never had a new leader that took office. Prime Minister Barrow is still the leader, was the leader on Sunday, and was the leader today, yesterday and Monday. So he's leaving. We have to now think about possibility of having another convention just for leader. We may decide as a party, the delegates may decide, listen, we could choose, we could come to a consensus and choose a leader in the spirit of efficiency. Any one of these things can happen. But right now, anything can happen in terms of the normal process before Sunday. People can apply to be the leader, and of course under the UDP Constitution, anyone from the National Assembly can express their interest in becoming leader, or no, maybe the Honorable Hugo Pat or the Honorable Beverly Williams, having been elected on Sunday, could decide that they now want that leadership spot. It's absolutely wide open. The new leadership of the party, including myself, Alberto Argas, the Honorable Hugo Pat, Honorable Beverly Williams, and the Prime Minister, will have to sit down along with the Central Party Executive Committee, the National Party Council, and then we have to decide in what direction we will move. That's what we have to do at this point.
Parafit also responded to a question about the atmosphere of the subsequent session held with all 31 standard bearers of the ruling party this afternoon in Belmopan. He said it was a gathering of mixed emotions, but it went smoothly, notwithstanding the worrisome Lev Derman scandal.
The best interests of the party, in his view and our view, is more important than one person's ambition. And we respect John, we love John, but in my personal view, I believe he came to the right decision.
I am reluctant to ask about what transpired in the cabinet aspect of the meeting, but insofar as the other era representatives and standard bearers who were brought in, what was that discussion like, and what was the atmosphere inside the room in terms of the sharing of opinions and positions on this matter?
Well, it wasn't as ruckus as most people would have wanted it to be. It was not that at all. We had, like as I alluded to earlier, a full and frank discussion about the best interests of the party. It was productive. There was love. There was sadness of the situation. There was the urgency, given the fact that we have to face the Belizean people and tell the Belizean people that we believe that it is right for the country and for the party to ask our leader-elect to remove himself from that position. It's not easy, but it was a healthy discussion. It was a wonderful discussion. And the Prime Minister decided, which I think was the best decision, to include all 31 standard bearers for the next election so that they could have an input and a say as to what they felt was the best interest of the party going forward. Remember, all 31 standard bearers had their 16 delegates. They were a big part of the election, so it was only fair to include them in the meeting so we could hear their thoughts. But the Prime Minister is the chairman of Cabinet, and the Prime Minister decides how he wants to deal with the Cabinet. So the Prime Minister couldn't remove him as leader because he was duly elected. But the Prime Minister, as he said in his statement, was duty-bound to ask him to resign from the leadership of the party.
The question of invoking the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty was put to Attorney General Michael Parafit. He explains the mechanism behind requesting sensitive court documents in respect of John Saldiva's involvement with Lev Derman and Jacob Kingston. That information, he says, may not necessarily come from the Utah District Court.
I'm not sure. Utah is where the trial was happening. The evidence that we may need to gather may not come from Utah. It may come from somewhere else, but we have to get somewhere before we reach that. As you know, the treaty is invoked whenever we in Belize have an interest in a crime that may have occurred in Belize. Then we would request of the U.S. through the treaty information that will help our investigation here. We have to do the investigation, and once during the investigation, we come across anything that we believe the U.S. authorities could help us with, then we would request of them information that would bolster our case here. So the treaty is always there. We operate it every day. We use it every day. But there would have to be good reason for us to summon information from the courts. And usually when you do that, it's because the situation involves a crime that is both a crime in the requesting state and the requested state.
We're looking at, for instance, money laundering. If we're saying it's $50,000 US that was given to him in Miami, then how would he have gotten those monies here when you have to declare anything above $10,000?
Well, like I told you, the Honorable John Saldiva has maintained his innocence. He's not saying, I am guilty and so therefore I'm resigning. He's saying he's resigning because he believes that all the attention and the distraction is having the party go through some hemorrhaging. He maintains and has maintained and still do maintain that he is innocent of any bribery, corruption, or any crime for that matter.
The statement from the Attorney General was made after the Chamber of Commerce and Industry wrote to him and the Prime Minister calling on them to initiate an investigation into the allegations of bribery of public officials by Lev Derman and Jacob Kingston under the MLAT. The BCCI said that, quote, there is sufficient circumstantial evidence to justify the government's investigation into the very grave allegations that affect the integrity and perception of Belize, and that the MLAT empowers Belize to request information regarding a criminal investigation, the prerequisite being that there must be a local investigation, unquote. The Chamber also calls on government to request any and all documents and information, including deposed testimonies of Derman and Kingston in respect of their business interests and dealings in Belize. Former Deputy Prime Minister Patrick Faber, who resigned on Monday following defeat during the February 9th Leadership Convention, is contemplating a return to the race whenever a subsequent date is set for the Leadership Convention. And while that remains pending, his political opponent turned benched Cabinet Minister Sal Deaver may very well be back in the saddle when the date is set. Here's how the party chairman explained it.
What if the Honorable Patrick Faber was to decide, in light of all of what has happened and the stunning loss he took on Sunday, to offer his name once again? What, in your opinion, would be the dynamics between others who chose Saldivar over him this time around? Perhaps as an observation on your part.
There will be no dynamics. See, if the party decides that it wants to hold another convention, Minister Faber is free to put in his name to run as the leader of the party. It would be interesting to note, but even the Honorable John Saldivar would be free to put his name. He has resigned. But if the party chooses to have another convention, he could choose at that point again to put in his name, having stepped down technically when you look at it that way. So, look, parties have conventions. And so if the party decides to have a convention, anybody who is a member of the National Assembly can apply to be the leader of the party.
Still believe that there is strength going forward that the UDP can in fact win a fourth consecutive term in light of all of this?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what this Prime Minister has demonstrated is that he's a man of his word and he's a man of principle and integrity. He told this nation that there are only allegations that one of his ministers took money from this man. He told the nation that every minister in cabinet told him no, they didn't accept any money from this man. That until evidence rears its head, he would do nothing and act in no way until he sees that evidence. He has seen that evidence, and true to his word, he has decided to deal with that particular minister by not just asking him to resign as leader, but by indefinitely suspending him from the cabinet. The PUP don't do that. Only the UDP does that. So no matter what issues may be happening in the UDP, we are still head and shoulders above the People's United Party. And I don't think that with all the issues that we have, that Johnny Briceño is a better alternative than whichever leader the UDP were to choose to lead it into the next general elections.
Speaking of the opposition, the People's United Party postponed its press conference originally scheduled for today to allow the party's executive to meet at its headquarters on Queen Street. There, the party discussed the Saldivar scandal along with national policies to be presented during a press conference on Wednesday. But opposition leader John Briceño released a 2-minute statement in which he describes the Saldivar scandal as a crisis for the United Democratic Party. Briceño says that Prime Minister Dean Barrow has lost control of the party and the government.
The events surrounding the UDP over the past few days show that the UDP administration has come undone and is in crisis. a crisis created by a prime minister who has lost control of his government and who, in light of all the evidence about John Saldivar's involvement in bribery, refused to act and refused to postpone the UDP convention because it would not have been in his personal interest. And while the UDP is dealing with their own corruption, crime and violence continues to be out of control, and everything is broken, including the rule of law. Our productive sector is in crisis. Our banking sector is in crisis. Unemployment is high. Our people are not earning a living wage, and more than 40% of our people are living in poverty. The country is suffering because of the UDP. Their criminal behavior and rampant corruption is causing us a black eye at home and abroad. Belizeans tired. We're tired of the hustling and corruption, and for sure, we're all tired of the UDP.
At the end of the Prime Minister's emergency meeting, John Saldivar was asked to resign as leader-elect of the UDP and was placed on an indefinite suspension. Saldivar will be given a chance to prove his innocence and time for government to obtain official transcripts from the Utah court. PUP leader John Brisenia says that these actions taken by the Prime Minister are an insult to the Belizean people.
What the Prime Minister has done with the issue of John Saldivar is an insult to the Belizean people. He knew all along what was taking place in Utah. He was told. He saw documents that were filed in court, and he refused to take action. And now that after all of this have come to the public, we even found out a document today that was in court accusing Mr. Kingston of having sex with minors and all kind of crazy stuff. For him to say that he is going to suspend indefinitely John Saldivar and in effect still keep him as Minister of National Security, I think it's an insult. Because he's saying suspension, but yet John Saldivar in his his press release to the media, he's saying that he is still the Minister of National Security. I find that insulting, and that the Prime Minister, despite everything, refuses to look at the facts and to act.
In reality, what happened today was a crime against Belize. Why? Because we feel that on Sunday it was a sham, a very expensive sham. Some people are saying as much as $1.5 million was spent for that convention, but it was a sham. And the only purpose of that sham on Sunday was to get rid of Patrick Farber. And having gotten rid of Patrick Farber, now Dean Barrow is turning his Machiavellian mind to getting rid of John Saldivar. And again, as the party leader just said, Saldivar is saying he's still a Minister of National Security. The Prime Minister is saying that he has indefinitely suspended him from the Ministry of National Security or from Cabinet. Who is telling the truth? Somebody is lying, somebody is not being upfront with the Belizean people. And once again, they're putting party before country. They're putting the legacy of Barrow, the fortunes of their party above what should be good sense, what should be the proper course of action in moving this country forward.
Former Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Leader of the United Democratic Party, Patrick Farber, told News 5 as he left the Sir Edney Keane building in Belmopan that he supports the Prime Minister's statement. Now, the Attorney General has said that anyone can vie for the leadership of the UDP, including Hugo Pat and Beverly Williams. But where does Patrick Farber stand? We're told that Farber is reviewing his options whether or not to go at it again. As for the assertion that the party is in crisis, Farber says that is a matter of opinion.
The Prime Minister is going to make a statement, and we're asking the media to respect that. When that statement comes out at another date, I'll be happy to.
Sir, that statement has
that is what
your
we
support?
Bonded to from upstairs. Absolutely.
That statement has your support.
Absolutely.
How would you describe the atmosphere of the meeting, sir?
It was, well, it was a tough time for decision making. Tough decisions were made, but I am confident that we're all united on the same page, and that we are very, very convicted in our desire to move this party forward and to ensure that we are fighting fit and ready for the general elections.
They say UEP is in crisis, sir.
Well, that's an opinion, isn't it?
Attorneys for Lev Durham's trial are cross-examining Jacob Kingston in a Salt Lake court, and the defense has been carrying on about Kingston's participation in past frauds and schemes. There's been nothing new on Belize, but this morning, presiding judge Jill Parrish granted the U.S. government a motion to exclude any evidence regarding alleged incest or child abuse by the Davis County Cooperative Society, known as the Order, where Kingston is an associate. The motion also extends to alleged possession of child pornography or underage sex by Jacob Kingston. The government brought 10 counts of money laundering related charges against Durham, and it is arguing that the allegations therefore bear no relevance to the criminal charges on the testimony of the Kingstons. In short, Durham's allegations against his former business in respect of incest and underage sex will not be allowed in trial. Coming up, we'll have more from Belmopan.
For more than 30 years, Cam2 is
The Council of Churches today chimed in on the debacle of the last 72 hours that has resulted in a sense of uncertainty in the political leadership of the government. As a member of civil society, the church has been quiet and hasn't really spoke out on corruption, crime, and other issues plaguing the country. Well, today the council broke its silence, and Bishop Philip Wright says that they are concerned about the impact that the instability at the level of leadership will have on all Belizeans.
There's no doubt when you have even the appearance of instability or worse at the level of leadership, you have to have a concern of how it will impact people in general. And we're talking about the ruling party at the moment. We're talking about what appears to be a bit of a power struggle still. And I don't think that can hold well for a nation. On Sunday, the delegates of one particular party spoke, but I think the voice that is far more important is the voice of the people of this nation. And perhaps in the near future, we will hear that larger voice. But yes, I think when you look at what is going on, as a concerned citizen, as a Belizean who love this country, you cannot be happy with the kind of with the situation as you see it at the moment. Yeah,
we've seen social partners, civil society come out and speak about corruption, because that is at the root of this whole thing. We've seen them come out and speak about it, but for some time, people would say that we haven't heard from the churches, the Council of Churches to be exact. Can you speak to that? Have you guys lost your voice when it comes to issues like these that are of national importance?
I would hate to think that we've lost our voice, but it's a fair question, Dwayne. And what happened is, when we meet sometimes as executive, we do discuss these matters. The concerns are raised. So it's not that we are unaware. I think what we have not done all the time was to leave that meeting with a press release to say, here is the voice of the... and on that point, yeah, I think indeed there are times we should say more.
A shooting has left 2 persons injured in Belize City. Sometime after 4 this evening, several shots were fired on Baghdad Street. Those bullets hit Raheem Belgrave and Errol Bowen. Both men are hospitalized. Reports are that a single gunman fired more than 10 shots and then escaped. As you heard, John Saldivar has been suspended indefinitely from cabinet and will step down as leader-elect 3 days after he was elected. On Sunday, he had the support of the majority of his cabinet colleagues and UDP standard-bearers, who were very vocal then. Well, some of those Saldivar supporters today brushed off the media, remaining silent on the matter.
Prime Minister will be making a statement shortly, sir, and that will address the situation.
What is the tempo or the atmosphere inside the meeting this morning?
Good and casual, but Prime Minister
it can't be as good and as casual as you're painting it to be, given the tense political atmosphere surrounding the situation.
Maybe it's tense by you see, but for me, it's not tense.
Sir, has John Saldivar accepted that he received monies from Leverman, as Jacob Kingston had testified?
Prime Minister will give a statement shortly, sir.
Does Saldivar has your supporters still, sir?
Does Saldivar have my support?
Or does
I may tell you that I support it.
Do you have? Does he have your support?
Listen to me, sir. No worry about it, man. Just make sure that spot and put me in a danger in terms of try to put me in a danger.
Is this the final
danger already?
Is this the final we've seen from Mr. John Saldivar, sir?
Well, I don't know. Talk to John Saldivar.
What's your position? So you must have a...
What is my position?
Yes, as a senior member of the United Democratic Party.
I said to you, sir, that the Prime Minister will issue a statement shortly, sir.
The Prime Minister will make a statement, and he will do shortly. So anything that you might need to know, that message will address it.
Sir, are you prepared, if necessary, to be the party leader?
The Prime Minister will make a statement too. That's all I have to say at this point in time.
Has your constituency account been closed too?
I have not been informed, ma'am, but if I understand that Scotiabank took a policy statement that all accounts that are politically affiliated, independent of any political party, it is I think a policy decision has been taken to close down those accounts.
The Prime Minister will make a statement.
Your sentiments coming out of this
The
meeting?
Prime Minister will make a sentiment, darling.
How do you feel
The Prime Minister will
considering
make a
that we know that
statement.
this is something surrounding
The
Saldivar
Prime
and your
Minister will make a
support was
statement.
Father?
The Prime Minister will make a statement.
I love you, sir.
I
I love you, sir, but I want to answer a question.
No today.
Ralph Fonseca's name was also called by Jacob Kingston in the U.S. District Court in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, Fonseca has not been in government for years. According to Kingston, Fonseca assisted him and Lev German in receiving a license for Lions Gaming, an online and physical casino in Belize. Kingston testified that a warehouse under the name of Fonseca was bought for more than $700,000. Chairman of the PUP, Henry Charles Usher, says that Ralph Fonseca no longer forms part of the People's United Party executive.
Ralph Fonseca resigned from politics many years ago. He is a private citizen, he is a businessman, and if he has any issues having to do with the person in question, he can resolve those issues on his own. That has nothing to do with the PUP. Ralph Fonseca is not on any ballot, but I believe John Saldivar is on the ballot, and he's the one that has to answer that.
The recently elected deputy leader of the United Democratic Party and newly appointed deputy prime minister of Belize, Hugo Pat, today lost his cool with a reporter. Pat was exiting the prime minister's emergency press conference at the Sir Edney Kane building when he was asked about reports that UDP delegates were sold lands on keys for $1,000. As at first, Pat said he was not aware of the reports, but later snapped when the reporter pressed on the issue.
Sir, we received reports that delegates received land bought for $1,000 or sold to them for $1,000. Is that true?
Let's go. I don't know, Mama. I really don't know.
You look shaken.
Man, I look shaky.
I will answer you.
Not shaky.
I will answer you because you like to distort my information. There is a policy where land is issued and a set price, and I think that a cabinet decision was taken to that effect, and all we're doing is complying. I don't see the issue of a Belizean getting a piece of land and paying the price that the social price that all people pay. What is the issue with that?
A cabinet decision to what effect?
Probably might have
To anybody for you to.
I want to give one a piece of land to man, don't worry, huh?
Anybody for you to.
I want to give a piece of land to Kika for you, huh?
On Tuesday, as the testimony of Jacob Kingston indicated that Saldivar had traveled to Miami to pick up $50,000 in cash, reverberated across Belize. There was word that Steve Duncan had called in quits in the Senate. Duncan is one of government's appointed senators and a senior banker. His decision to quit the Senate was likely predicated by the possible charges of money laundering which could arise from the evidence of Kingston. As a senator, Duncan is a politically exposed person, and it would not be prudent for him as a senior banker to be a senator representing a government that is faced with such serious allegations. As a PEP, the banking transactions at his bank are highly scrutinized. There's much more news after the break, so stay tuned.
The following is Honorable John Briceño's address.
The Council of Churches has taken a position on the Equal Opportunities Bill. The Council is of the view that having now had the opportunity to review and discuss the proposed legislation with its attorneys and membership, the Council is unable to support the bill in its present form. As you may know, the bill is being lobbied by Special Envoy for Women and Children and the National AIDS Commission and identifies 19 vulnerable groups of people, including the LGBTI community and persons living with diverse abilities. The proponents have maintained that the bill will regulate specific conduct in areas of public life in order to protect individuals and will not affect the work of the church. Well, the Council believes that the bill in its current state has grave and negative implications for the churches of Belize, particularly in the areas of constitutional rights and freedoms, civil liberties, marriage, education, employment, and business. Today, President Bishop Philip Wright spoke with News 5 about it.
The Council of Churches will support any effort to protect the rights of every individual in this country, and also would never support anything that would be deemed as discrimination. However, after several consultations, the members of the Council of Churches has agreed that this bill in its current form is not what we need at this point in time. And therefore, at this point in time, rejects this bill in its current form.
Were you guys even consulted on this?
Yes, we've had conversations with the Special Envoy and with the AIDS Commission and also with the Ministry of Human Development. But we also had consultations with our own attorneys. And I think it's out of all of that the Council emerged with the position it has taken.
According to Bishop Philip Wright, the Council of Churches is open to further discussion on the bill. The Council would be willing to consider if, by way of referendum, the people are given an opportunity to accept or reject the bill, and it does not supersede the Constitution. The Council also says that it would rather that specific legislation, such as the Public Health Act and the Labor Act, are amended to address issues of discrimination. Bishop Wright says that Senator Ashley Rock has been a part of the ongoing discussion with the Council.
Initially, of course, we raised a number of issues that we thought would affect the work of the church. We were given some assurances, things like the bill would not affect, who we ordain or who we don't ordain and those sort of things, and it wouldn't affect the church in terms of its religious practice. However, when we studied the bill more deeply, 4 things emerged that particularly concern us, in general speaking. One, we felt like the Marriage Act could be affected by the bill, and enough discussion on that matter has not taken place. Secondly, however, in this country, the church is not just a religious body. The church is also an employer, and therefore aspects of the bill that has to do with employer-employee relationships will affect the church. Thirdly, the church is very involved in education. And again, there are aspects of the bill that would have implications for educational institutions and those who manage such. And fourthly, the church runs businesses too. The church is involved in business, maybe small ones, and there too the bill has implications for those who run business. And so it's when we looked at those areas, we became very concerned that this bill in its current form would not help the church in its work.
When we come back, the sugar industry gets a $1.7 million lab to control outbreaks of the destructive frog hopper. The government of Belize, the European Union, and Sugar Industry Research and Development Institute officially opened an integrated pest and disease laboratory. The $1.7 million Belize dollars lab will develop the biological control called metarazium. It will be applied to farms where there are outbreaks of the frog hopper pest. It is a major pest that has resulted in millions of dollars in losses. News 5 traveled to Corozal today for the opening of the lab at the Sirdi compound in Buena Vista Village. Here's the story.
The sugarcane industry inaugurated the first of its kind metarazium laboratory. This lab will use naturally occurring organisms like fungi called metarazium. In the lab, it will be developed as an alternative to conventional chemical pesticides. It will be used to prevent and/or control a number of pest infestations, including the destructive frog hopper, a major pest that targets sugarcane crops. The metarazium is an effective and environmentally friendly biological control method that is in line with international standards.
Our goal as an industry is to become competitive, not ignoring the challenges we are facing in terms of production, the unstable sugar global market prices, the prolonged periods of droughts, and the effects of climate change, and as a result, the appearance of new pests and diseases every day. Therefore, the need for venturing towards more environmentally friendly alternatives for production without compromising human health while safeguarding nature and its ecology. All of us associations are aware that we are certified under the Fair Trade brand, and that to comply with the Fair Trade standards, we need to stop using chemicals and to start using biological control agents for controlling pests. This is something that we have long awaited, and now it is here. The facility to produce biological control agents, such as the well-known to our farmers, metarazium.
The frog hopper alone has caused millions of dollars in losses to the sugarcane industry. It is a pest that has been around for years and affects cane farmers by increasing cost of production due to the need for regular chemical controls, which results in a decrease of sugarcane production. With global demands for environmentally safe and organically produced crops, this couldn't have come at a better time.
In 2006-2007, according to the records that I was looking at, the industry lost 100,000 tons of cane due to frog hopper damage at a cost of $9 million. In 2012, we also had a frog hopper outbreak. In 2013, we had another frog hopper outbreak. And 18,000 acres of the established sugarcane fields were affected by frog hoppers, causing an estimated reduction in production of 36%. This weapon here for biological control is a good initiative, one that we embrace, because we cannot continue relying on inorganic petrochemical products to do our pest and disease management. And we also have to start introducing, or rather increasing, the cultural practices that we are engaged with in the sugar industry to make it more environmentally friendly, to make it healthier for our farmers.
Over the years, farmers have had a tough time to control the frog hopper. They now welcome this lab, which will make the biological agent available to them at an affordable price. Roy Navarro, a sugarcane farmer and board member of the newest Sugarcane Farmer Association, says that the problem has persisted for a long time, and they're relieved to be getting help.
This project, I think, is good because we're preparing ourselves if in case, and I think sooner or later we'll have the pest again. So I think the project is good.
What kind of problem does the frog hopper create for the sugar farmers? What does it do to the crops?
Well, the frog hopper, when it's, you know the frog hopper, it's a small insect, and when this frog hopper attacks the sugarcane, well, it basically destroys everything of the frog, including the plants and the quality.
Has it been very difficult for the farmers to control this pest?
Yes, it's very difficult to control that pest. It's, in terms of chemicals, well, it's not good to use so much chemicals. That's why I think, but this project, the biological control is better than the chemical control.
What kind of losses did you experience as a result of this pest?
In terms of, if I could talk in percentage, more than 50%.
Of your crops?
Of our crop, when this pest attacks our cane fields.
The lab is part of a wider project supported and funded by the European Union with the government of Belize and the Sugar Industry Research and Development Institute. CIRDI says that vegetable and fruit growers, as well as cattle herders and households, can use the metarhizium to eliminate a number of pests. The metarhizium is also proven to be effective against other pests like weevils, ticks, cockroaches, whiteflies, and adult grass loopers. Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
Coming up after the break, we'll tell you about a concert for lovers this Friday.
global perspective.
The Belize Tourism Board hosted a media forum earlier this week at the Best Western Belize Biltmore Plaza. With assistance from its North American marketing agency, ICF Next, MSNBC Live weekend anchor Candace Gibson was brought to Belize to make a presentation focusing on international journalism best practices. He also fielded questions from local media personalities on how to best protect Belize's image as a tourism destination. News 5 spoke with Misty Michaels of the BTB and Gibson.
Tourism as the #1 income earner for the country, that there are a lot of things that happen within the industry, and sometimes the way that these stories are brought across locally have a much wider international reach. And the idea of Candace coming in was for him to share his experience within the U.S. Media and journalism landscape, to share some best practices and his experience with the local media, to explore ways in which we can still bring across the news that's happening locally, but minimizing the impact that it could potentially have negatively on the destination.
The first time I started talking about it a lot on TV was after there was a period of time where you had the Chicago news producer from an ABC station who was killed in Cayo. You had the guy who does the security software, McAfee, who was in the news at the same time, how he got away through Guatemala or so. And all that we were hearing about Belize was negative stuff. At least that's what I thought. So part of my mission, at least from my own little world, was to try to get Belize mentioned, not necessarily in a negative way, just to get the name out there. So we mentioned the name when the Olympics came on. We made sure to put the Belize Olympic team on air. It lasted 2 minutes, or 2 seconds rather, and we'd do a medal count, and we'd mention, and Belize has none. But it was all in fun, but it's also to contrast all the negative news that was coming out about Belize, at least from my control.
This Friday at the Belize City Civic Center, a concert for lovers takes place, featuring Jamaican artist Horace Riley. Today he arrived in Belize as final preparations are being made for the event that will also feature Belizean artists such as Denise Castillo and Cadence. News 5 caught up with Riley and his promoters today.
And she's royal, yeah, so royal.
It's a pleasure to be here. Belize is a really nice place, you know. We have, it reminds me of Jamaica, even the way we talk. The man says, sing it, wow, go on, it sounds cool. We have a lot of friends from Belize also, even one of my brethren right now, an upcoming rapper, ready for bust out, named Pryor. It's from Belize, you know what I mean? I just want to play the music, but we're here to have a good time. So if you want to have a good time, come check me out.
I fight, I know I criticize, I'm on the higher heights. So you can say what you want to and do what you want to, it's no concern to me. Come have my own vision, me dep on my own mission to rule my destiny. Oh, it's my day to do anything I want to.
I put my identity in my music, you know, and if everyone is different, you know, but you have to tap into yourself to know that. Because there's so much things, you know, to follow, there's so much trends, I mean, and some of the trends, I'm gonna follow them, but I mean, even if we wear the same shoes, we lace them up different.
You spend all that money on your watch. How much time you spend with your son? So much money in the club. How much you spend with the ones you love? The simple things are your blessings.
I see myself going on stage to perform for the people this weekend.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, good night.